Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Naila Shujar and these are the headlines. President-elect Joe Biden says he wants to restore the soul of the United States, vowing to unify the country. In his victory address in Delaware, Biden says his first task is to get the coronavirus pandemic under control. The 77-year-old Democrat declared victory after he overtook Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, securing 279 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has made history by being elected as the first female, first Black, and first Asian American vice president-elect. Trump refuses to concede defeat, saying the election is far from over and it will be decided by the courts. Indian troops have martyred another civilian in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The youth was targeted during a cordon and search operation in the Kupwara district. The occupied valley has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communication blackout since the 5th of August 2019. Turkey says Armenia must withdraw from Azeri lands as it is occupying in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. In a phone call, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan urged his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, to bring Armenia to the negotiation table. Putin said Azeri and Armenian leaders want a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Over 1,200 people have been killed in nearly 6 weeks of fighting in and around the Nagorno-Karabakh. Voters in Myanmar are casting their ballots in the country's second general election since the military ceded absolute power in 2011. Over 37 million people are eligible to vote in the polls set to elect the upper and lower houses of the parliament. Over 224 seats in the House, 168 are directly elected, while 56 are military appointees. France has registered record over 80,000 daily COVID-19 cases, with tally crossing 1.7 million. In Pakistan, 25 people have died from the virus overnight, taking the toll to 6,968. Pakistan's caseload tops 343,000, with over 1,400 new infections since yesterday. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 1.25 million lives and infected 49.7 million people. For news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Democrat Joe Biden has won the race for the White House, convincingly crossing the 270 electoral votes mark. The president-elect has set uniting Americans and taking on the COVID-19 pandemic surging in the country as his priority. After an exhausting 4 days of waiting after polls closed on Tuesday, Joe Biden declared victory after he overtook Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, securing 279 electoral votes. In his victory address to Americans deeply divided along political and racial lines over the past 4 years, Biden said he wants to restore the soul of the United States, vowing to unify the country. Addressing Trump supporters, Biden said he understood their disappointment and asked to give each other a chance.
I said at the outset, I wanted to represent this campaign to represent and look like America. We've done that. Now that's what I want the administration to look like and act like. For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself, but now let's give each other a chance. It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, lower the temperature, see each other again, listen to each other again. And to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies. They are Americans. They're Americans.
Joe Biden's running mate Kamala Harris has made history to be the first female, first Black, and first Asian American vice president-elect. Addressing the crowd in Delaware, Kamala Harris said the president-elect had the audacity to break a substantial barrier that exists in the United States, selecting a woman as his vice president.
But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump refuses to concede defeat, saying the election is far from over and it will be decided by the courts. White House officials say they're abiding by the statutory requirements but declining to provide details. Although the United States law maps out instructions for an orderly presidential transition, the Trump to Biden transition appears to be a bumpy road ahead. A festive atmosphere took over the streets across the United States as thousands of jubilant Joe Biden supporters celebrated his victory in the presidential election. Days of pent-up post-election anxiety gave way to spontaneous street celebrations as Joe Biden supporters cheered news of his presidential win with a cacophony of banging pots and pans and honking horns in cities across the United States. Hundreds of people danced, cheered, and waved flags just yards from the White House grounds. In Washington Square Park, young supporters ran through a fountain and danced. In Times Square, cyclists performed stunts to celebrate their new leader's victory. In downtown Los Angeles, a mass protest against Donald Trump turned into a victory celebration.
I'm a little bummed that the country still feels so divided. I think we would have hoped for a more overwhelming anti-Trump kind of stance, but I think it just shows how much work that Biden has to do. He's got a lot of uniting to do, and I really hope he's up to the task, honestly.
Oh my gosh, I feel so ecstatic. I'm so happy, and I think I just feel relieved. I just feel relieved. I can breathe, and today we're gonna celebrate. Today, all day, nothing can bring me down.
Cher, Ariana Grande, and Kim Kardashian were among the celebrities who cheered minutes after Joe Biden's win. Rallies by hundreds of supporters of Donald Trump were more muted in size and scope compared with the festive crowds.
I encourage President Trump to continue his lawsuits and, fight for, the stealing of this, to stop the stealing of this election.
While there were some isolated instances of Trump and Biden supporters confronting one another, however, there were no immediate reports of violence or other unruly behavior. Leaders around the globe are congratulating U.S. President-elect Joe Biden. They hoped for better ties with America under the new administration. Pakistan's President Dr. Arif Alvi congratulated newly elected President Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Prime Minister Imran Khan expressed hope to work with the United States for peace in the region and Afghanistan. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he is looking forward to work with the newly elected President and Vice President. In her congratulatory message, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the transatlantic friendship is irreplaceable if they master great challenges of the time. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said London is looking forward to work closely together on shared priorities, from climate change to trade and security. In a tweet, European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said she warmly congratulates Joe Biden on his victory. Japan's Prime Minister Yoshida Suga said he is looking forward to further strengthening the alliance and ensuring peace, freedom, and prosperity. Palestinians welcomed Trump's exit but said they're cautious about Biden. Meanwhile, contrary to many others, Mexico's President Andrés López Obrador says he will wait for the electoral process to be over to congratulate any winner. Indian troops have martyred another civilian in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The youth was targeted during a cordon and search operation in the Kupwara district. The operation in Michal area of the district was going on until last reports came in. The Indian troops have martyred over 150 Kashmiri civilians across the disputed valley this year alone. The occupied valley has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communication blackout since the 5th of August 2019. Turkey says Armenia must withdraw from Azeri lands it occupying in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. In a statement, Ankara said President Tayyip Erdogan held a telephone call with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. In a statement, Erdogan said Armenia must be convinced to sit down at the negotiating table. The Kremlin said Putin informed Erdogan about his phone calls with the Azeri and Armenian leaders. Putin said the leaders focused on finding options for a swift cessation of hostilities and a political settlement. It read all sides confirmed a mutual readiness to cooperate in order to achieve a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan has reported civilian killings by the Armenian forces in Tatar, Brada, Akhtam, Akhjabadi, and Gulbaldi regions. The Azeri Defense Ministry said its forces hit military targets of Armenia in retaliatory measures. Over 1,200 people have been killed in nearly 6 weeks of fighting in and around the Nagorno-Karabakh. Voters in Myanmar are casting their ballots in the country's second general election since the military ceded absolute power in 2011. Over 37 million people are eligible to vote in the polls set to elect the upper and lower houses of the parliament. Of the 224 seats in the House, 168 are directly elected, while 56 are military appointees. Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy is expected to win the second term, but pre-poll surveys show Suu Kyi's party is likely to get lesser seats this time around. The Human Rights Watch has decreed the elections as fundamentally flawed. Suu Kyi's government's reputation crumbled internationally amid allegations of Rohingya Muslim genocide. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for elections to be held fairly and orderly. Lebanon's President Michel Aoun has asked for proof against his son-in-law's Gibran Bassil to justify the latest U.S. sanctions. On Friday, Washington sanctioned Bassil over charges of corruption and human rights violations. Lebanese presidency says Aoun has asked his government to obtain the documents related to these accusations. It said the president also called for handing over the documents to the Lebanese judiciary to take the necessary measures. In September, Aoun issued similar directives after Washington blacklisted 2 former government ministers. Bassil heads Lebanon's greatest Christian political bloc, the Free Patriotic Movement. France has registered record over 80,000 daily COVID-19 cases, with tally crossing 1.7 million. The death toll in France has crossed 40,000 after 306 people lost their lives to the virus overnight. Meanwhile, in India, the virus has claimed 126,000 lives so far, infecting more than 8.5 million. The United States continues to be on top of the worst-hit countries. Texas has become the first U.S. state to exceed 1 million coronavirus cases. Over in Latin America, Mexico's fatality toll has risen to nearly 95,000, with 485 more deaths in the last 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 1.25 million lives and infected 49.7 million people. In Pakistan, 25 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the country's death toll has risen to 6,968. It said over 1,400 people have tested positive for the disease overnight. The military said there are nearly 18,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It said out of over 343,000 countrywide cases, more than 318,000 have recovered so far. The ministry said over 149,000 cases have been detected in the province of Sindh, while the Punjab has reported over 106,000 cases. After years of delay, the first government-funded mosque in the Greek capital of Athens has opened its doors to worshippers. Athens has not had a formal mosque since the Ottomans left the region nearly 200 years ago. Thousands of Muslims from countries including Pakistan, Syria, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh live in Athens. But until now, they had been forced to pray in makeshift mosques, in warehouses or basement apartment buildings. The Muslim community had been lobbying the government for decades, and it seems their prayers have finally been answered.
It's an historic moment for the Muslim communities living in Athens. We have been waiting this mosque for so long. Since the first law was passed in 2006, it took 14 years because there were so many bureaucratic barriers and some legal issues with the construction of the mosque.
The new building in Athens' Vitanikos district will serve around 500,000 Muslims. Its construction had been riddled with controversy, including the change of locations due to protest by some locals. The construction finally began in 2017, and now after its completion, Muslims are breathing a sigh of relief.
The mosque for us Muslims is something very important, and I would like to thank Allah. I would like to thank the Republic of Greece, which helped us to complete this project.
Athens was the only European Union capital without an official mosque. Though some Muslims are unhappy with the mosque's appearance, as it lacks a dome or a minaret, others say it's a welcome start. It's now time for a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Tropical storm Eta is lashing the Caribbean with torrential rainfall and damaging winds as it approaches Cuba. The National Hurricane Center predicts isolated rainfall totals of over 2 feet for both Cuba and the Cayman Islands in the coming days. It said the high rainfall could lead to life-threatening flash floods and landslides in the areas with higher terrain. In the United States of Florida, an emergency has been declared for 8 counties as the storm approaches. Earlier, Eta unleashed havoc in Central American state of Guatemala and killing over 100 people in mudslides. Bad weather continues to hamper rescue efforts while roads are still blocked and large areas remain flooded. Scientists in northern Russia have discovered a huge Atlantic walrus haul on the shores of Kara Sea. The walruses bask on the seashore where their habitat is under threat from shrinking ice and human activities. A drone footage shows thousands of walruses laying on a frozen beach in Yamalo-Nets region. According to an archaeological research, the area was known to ancient humans, walruses hunting spots some 1,500 years ago. In recent decades, Atlantic walruses were only spotted in dozens on haulouts of the Yamal Peninsula. The haulout, a place for refuge where walruses congregate, reproduce, and socialize, is located in a remote corner of the peninsula.
It is known for sure that all of its haulouts are located on islands. All of the Atlantic walrus subspecies are located exclusively on islands. The only Atlantic walrus continental haulout in the universe, which I once said carelessly, or at least the only one on the planet Earth, which is true, is at Out Yamal.
Scientists say they counted over 3,000 animals last month. They predicted there were signs that up to 5,000 animals may be hauled out at the site.
We have seen very clearly that this haulout was at least 1/3 bigger before we arrived. The traces of walrus bodies on sand as they come out of the sea are seen very clearly, especially with a drone. And when we project those numbers, we can be sure to say that the size of this haulout is between 3,000 and 5,000.
Walruses haulout have traditionally been located on drifting sea ice or on Arctic islands. However, warmer climate cycles mean sea ice is shrinking and habitats are under threat from oil and gas exploration and Arctic shipping. Robot dolphins could replace captive animals at theme parks in the years to come. More about this invention in this report.
Age Innovations, the U.S. company behind animatronics used for Hollywood blockbusters like Free Willy, Deep Blue Sea, and The Abyss, is hoping its technology will transform marine parks in China. It is providing an alternative to live animals captured, bred, trained, and held in captivity.
I think, it's kind of surprising there are like 3,000 dolphins currently in captivity being used to generate several billions of dollars just for dolphin experiences. And so there's obviously an appetite to love and learn about dolphins. And so we want to use that appetite and offer kind of different ways to fall in love with a dolphin.
Move to animatronics, including beyond traditional dolphin acrobatic shows, may be enough to bring back audiences turned off by parks using live animals.
If you want to design a show to use real dolphins, you've got to capture real dolphins, train them, and then get them to do that show. With creating robots, you have to do exactly the same thing. The difference is you don't have to do animal husbandry. You don't have to have breeding programs. You don't have to worry about the safety with human beings.
Beyond dolphins, the company envisions animatronic animals in marine parks to include great white sharks or even creatures from the Jurassic time period.
In Portugal, water scarcity and drought are causing problems for farmers in the southern Algarve region. They say an avocado production boom in recent years is to be blamed for the shortage of water. A British farmer who recently moved to Portugal is facing similar problems. The report has the details.
Like many Britons in Portugal, Richard Allen moved to the sun-drenched Algarve region to retire. He bought a farm, married the love of his life, and grew a vegetable garden. Then he started running after the precious blue liquid since avocados guzzle more water than the region's orange crops.
I'm sure that what used to be groundwater is now gone into the avocados or evaporated, one or the other, and it's not available for those of us who were expecting to be able to tap that for our daily life, basically.
Around 10 miles away, one of the region's main dams, Bravura, is down to just 18%, the lowest level in Portugal. Experts say climate change and rising temperatures have led to dehydration of important aquifers.
A disaster will happen soon. It is obvious it will happen soon. Climate change is very present. It is talked about all over the world. The Algarve is no exception.
Environmentalists foresee devastation that will be hard to undo once the avocado trend is over.
We are putting avocados in certain areas. We are completely devastating a traditional landscape to meet a market need. When avocados no longer have the price they have now, these properties will be abandoned, but the impacts will stay here.
From toast to smoothies, the avocado has become popular worldwide. It is completely in fashion, and the new generations are attracted to it due to its immense health benefits. But if Allen's struggles are anything to go by, the lack of water may ultimately bring Algarve's avocado dreams to halt.
An ancient baking method is seeing a revival in the Jordanian city of Ajloun, thanks to a woman intent on preserving the use of primitive clay ovens. More in this report. 44-year-old Sabah Bani Salman grew up with the scent of freshly baked bread every day. The mother of 5 recalls that her own mother built her an oven in their small garden. Sabah reminisces that her mother used the oven to make a type of flatbread in the Tabun region.
As far back as I can remember, my mother would knead and bake. We never ate bread from the market, so I got used to this idea, but I never did it at home. Even when I first got married, my mother would bring me her bread, but she fell ill and she became unable to deliver the bread. This forced me to learn how to bake the bread at home.
Clay ovens have been used in the Middle East since biblical times, most commonly before the invention of gas and electric ovens. They usually have a cylindrical shape and are powered by burning logs or coal.
As far as I am concerned, I believe everyone should return to this form of baking. In this area I am living in, once I started doing this at home, all my neighbors decided to buy ovens from me and start baking at their own homes. They no longer buy bread.
In addition to selling the oven she builds, Bani Salman also makes income by hosting tour groups. She gives them a brief history of the clay ovens along with giving them a taste of her delicious baked goods. China says it has sent the world's first 6G experiment satellite into space. Local media said the experimental satellite will verify the terahertz communication technology in space. The report said it is among 3 Chinese satellites that are successfully launched into orbit. Developed by an Argentinian company, they were launched from the center in northern Shanxi province. In September, China launched its 3rd maritime satellite into space to help Beijing's mapping efforts. Meanwhile, China's new commercial rocket, Ceres-1, has completed its maiden flight in the northern Gansu province. In the English Premier League clash, West Ham United beat Fulham 1-0. Victory for West Ham lifted to 11th spot with 11 points. Fulham's Edmola Lookman spurned a glorious chance to earn a point for the visitors with a botched last gap penalty. Thomas Susek scored the only goal in the stoppage time. West Ham traveled to Sheffield United on the 22nd of November, while Fulham host Everton on the 21st of November. Earlier, Chelsea continued their unbeaten run with a 4-1 win over Sheffield United. Chelsea are on the third spot with 15 points, while Sheffield remain at the bottom of the Premier League with 1 point. In the Spanish La Liga, Barcelona beat Real Betis 5-2 at Camp Nou for their first win in 5 games. Lionel Messi scored a brace, helping Barcelona move 8th with 11 points. Ousmane Dembélé opened the scoring for Barcelona, which was equalized by Antonio Sanabria just before the interval. But 4 second-half goals were more than enough to seal the resounding victory for Barcelona. Earlier, Huesca drew their first fixture 1-1 with Eibar. Rafa Mir and Esteban Bergen scored goals in the nail-biting encounter. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.